finish the joke. 1 Stagg X dripper, 1 flower dripper, 1 V60, 2 naturally processed coffees, and a black honey processed coffee walk into a bar. Okay, it's a long lead-in, but with a good punchline, I think we can get there, friends. I think we can. Hello, people of the internet, fellow coffee lovers, lovers of coffee everywhere. My name is Haley, your local neighborhood resident, local redundant, I'll find a way to say that, Q grader, and I am here to talk to you about 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 coffees we are featuring in a single box on Fellow Drops this week. But before I talk about that, I ground all of these coffees on our brand new grinder, which is changing the game, launching today. It is called Opus. Please go check it out on our site. Today, on Fellow Drops, I am talking about a process box that we are featuring from Red Rooster. Thank you so much, Red Rooster, for putting this together. It is a process box of El Salvador coffees, so a tour of El Salvador of sorts, and it's just really freaking exciting. I am brewing them on 3 different drippers because I found that when I was dialing in, selecting these coffees for these specific drippers brought out different parts of the coffees, right? So I first looked at the tasting notes of each coffee and then made an educated guess as to which would lend itself in a more interesting light to which dripper, if that makes sense, right? Because coffee is so subjective, so want to say which I thought would lend itself nicely to dialing in on which specific dripper. However, all of these coffees would be delicious on all 3, I could confidently say. At any rate, I will let you know what I'm brewing with, how I'm brewing, and all of that good stuff right now before I get too nerdy into the details and why I chose the coffee for which dripper and what have you. Because I do get nerdy about coffee sometimes, we all know this. So first, I am brewing a natural Pacamara from the Alotepec Metapan region on Stagg X. I chose this coffee for actually V60 originally because of the tasting notes, the higher sweet tasting notes of raspberry, mandarin orange, kind of that tangerine-ness. But I found brewed on Stagg X instead of the V60, it pulled out more of those tactile, milk chocolatey, nice kind of rounder body notes in it while still maintaining that sweetness. For the Cafec flower dripper right here in the middle, I chose the black honey processed Pacamara from Chalatenango. And yes, you're seeing my notes behind here. I took notes on my dials because I'm a huge nerd. And you know, I want to keep everything informationally straight and true for you guys as long as I'm brewing coffee on the internet. For the V60, I chose the natural San Pacho varietal from Apaneca Ilamatepec. And I chose that originally, like I said, for Stagg X because of the milk chocolate notes, the apple pie, the caramel, those fuller body rounded notes that I originally thought would be better for a flat bottom dripper, but actually lend themselves super nicely to the V60 because V60 will tend to pull out the sweetness of the apple pie, the sweetness of the caramel as well, just like more motion, so more sweetness, if that makes sense. Now, getting into how I brewed, I did 22 grams in, 350 grams out at 205 degrees Fahrenheit for my Stagg X. I ground at a 5.1 on Opus, right? So basically a medium grind setting. For the flower dripper, the black honey Pacamara, I used 23 grams of coffee in, 350 grams out. I brewed again at 205 degrees Fahrenheit, and I ground at a 4.2 on Opus, so a little bit finer, like a medium leaning towards medium fine. And for V60, finally, I used 23 grams in as well, 350 grams out, 205 degrees Fahrenheit, and I set Opus to a 4. So medium/medium fine leaning Again, slightly finer than the black honey. Like I said, any of these coffees are going to brew very interestingly and very deliciously on any of your drippers, whether you brew with V60, whether you brew with Stagg X religiously, or whether you brew with another dripper like the Flower. I simply wanted to talk a little bit about what a flat bottom will do versus a conical dripper and what kind of is the middle ground between the two. So like a flat bottom dripper, like our Stagg X, which has a flat bottom and has a varying amounts of holes evenly placed on the bottom that are smaller for the water to exit. The water flow rate will be slower, and generally a flat bottom dripper such as ours will pull out more of the body, more of the tactile. V60, which is more of a true form conical dripper, which, shaped like a cone, has an exit hole on the bottom that's very large for the water to flow through, and has geometry on the inside that's kind of slanted ridges, allowing to form sort of a whirlpool when you pour water in. It's going to have a lot of motion, a lot of agitation, and generally water will flow faster and you'll pull more of the sweetness out of any given coffee. And then in the middle here, we've got the flower dripper, which I consider to be, in my experience, sort of the middle ground between a flat bottom and a true conical dripper. The flower dripper has about the same exit hole as a V60. However, on the inside, there are cutouts like ridges that look almost like the petals of a flower, which is not only beautiful, but slows the water down just a little bit and makes for more tactile coming out in the cup, but also that nice added sweetness with a little bit extra water flow and agitation. You can get sweetness out of any cup. However, I think different drippers do different things, right? And it's interesting to highlight all of those different things that different drippers do. Anyway, as always, it is super easy to order from Fellow Drops, even a box of 3 coffees from El Salvador in one box. 3 coffees, different terroirs, a whole experience, a tour of El Salvador. You never get to see that. It's so cool. It's super easy to order from us. All you have to do is follow the directions in our text message and text us back. If you don't text us back, we won't charge you or send you coffee. We'll just text you next week with a different selection. Please let us know if you have any comments, questions, or concerns in the comment section. We are always reading them. I'm happy to answer any more questions you might have about different drippers, what they mean for your preferences, different terroirs, what terroir would mean with association to coffee, about varieties, about different processing methods. Just let us know whatever questions you might have, and I'm happy to answer them. Thank you so much for joining me for this brew guide. I'm gonna go drink all this coffee, and I hope to see you next week. Thanks, friends.